Joining me now is former judge and now president of Dickinson College, Jon Jones. Judge, what does a judge consider this kind of decision when you're potentially holding someone in the administration in criminal contempt is indeed not something I can imagine any judge taking lightly?
No, actually, Chris, no judge takes this lightly. And this is a brilliantly written opinion. I'm really thrilled that he did it. As someone who stands up for the federal courts, what Judge Boasberg is doing is essentially vindicating the authority of his court. And in this well-written opinion, he still, as Lisa Rubin said a few moments ago, gives the government an exit ramp, if you will, to get on and to purge, meaning in layman's terms, remove the contempt that he has found by probable cause.
This decision comes, and I think, she touched on this as well, despite the fact that the Supreme Court had vacated the order Judge Boasberg claims was likely violated. But Judge Boasberg wrote that the Supreme Court's decision, I'm quoting him here, does not excuse the government's violation. How important was that specifically?
Very, very important. The key factor here, Chris, is whether or not originally at the start of the case, Judge Boasberg had jurisdiction, meaning the power to hear the case. And the Supreme Court basically said he did. They said having achieved jurisdiction, he decided the case based on the Administrative Procedures Act. They said it should have been habeas corpus, and therefore venue should have been in Texas, all inside baseball legal stuff. But what he has said, Chris, in this really well-crafted opinion is that the government's exit ramp, as I mentioned a moment ago, is this. They can acknowledge that they have the members of this class, those who were deported and put in this prison, they can acknowledge that they have them in custody. And the meaning of that, or the significance of that, is that it would then conceivably allow them to file habeas corpus actions. Right now, the government hasn't even acknowledged to Judge Boasberg the existence of these people in custody, even though stands to reason we know that they are, of course.
Yeah, that's the first part of it, right? He's given them an off-ramp. There is a second part of this, and that is that they choose not to take that off-ramp, at which point he says that after April 23rd, 2025, they need to file a declaration telling him who, with knowledge of the court's order, the restraining order, made the decision not to halt the transfer of those folks in U.S. custody anyway. If there is a possibility that they say no to both, if they don't produce both, then what do you do?
Well, exactly. And the second part is, kind of couched in, look, I don't want to do this. Don't make me do this. But if you don't take the off ramp, the exit ramp, what you're going to have to do is file declarations. And I'm going to let the plaintiffs conduct depositions and find facts and try to determine who was at fault here. The whole opinion is sort of a panoply of the government exercising subterfuge, doing this proclamation in the middle of the night, and then knowing that the lawsuit had been filed, warming up these jets and taking them off when they knew there was a case pending in front of Boasberg. He really sets out well the context of his findings in the opinion. Now, if past is, sort of prologue and practice, what I think is going to happen is the administration is going to fight this tooth and nail. And once again, they're going to try to get it to an appellate court and probably to the Supreme Court. I don't really anticipate that they're going to accede to Judge Boasberg's offer, to get off the interstate and take this exit ramp.
They haven't shown an inclination so far, that's for sure. Judge Jon Jones, thank you. It's good to see you again.